This is Grow with the Bros, hosted by Ryan and Ken Parsons, founders of the Brothers That Just Do Gutters. Welcome to another episode of The Books That Built Us. We've made every mistake in the book, so you don't have to. Our time to evolve as business owners is now. Let's grow together. All right, so we really want to talk about why scaling your business is your best move. When I think scale, I do think numbers. I think multi-million dollar, $1 million. Like if somebody was to say, I'm going to scale my computer business, whether it's, I know we're talking about gutters and trades-based business. I'm thinking lots of money, lots of people, and me not necessarily doing the work. I think when it comes down to scaling, that's what we're talking about. And there was a book, Ken, you read it first, and you introduced me into Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow Quadrant. What do you got? The nice autographed one? That's messed up.
There he is.
Not like the old one. So it's the same guy that wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This was giant for our organization. And whether you read the whole book or not, what we're going to show you today about the Cashflow Quadrant really opened our eyes to what we were trying to do. We were trying to grow the business and we had our reasons. And then when we saw these quadrants that Robert Kiyosaki talked about, it really made it clear what quadrant we were trying to be in and what quadrant we're going to talk to you about that we think it's worth getting your business to. So Ken, why don't you take us through the four quadrants?
So it's pretty simple. It's the ESBI, and there's a left side of the quadrant and there's a right side of the quadrant. On the left side, you have employee and self-employed. On the right side, you have business owner and investor. And what the difference is, I guess, from employee to self-employed, that employees have a boss, where self-employed, all their customers are now their bosses.
So they have more bosses. Everyone goes into business on their own because they don't want a boss, but you're saying that they actually end up with more bosses.
Yeah, I mean, technically, when you look at it that way, in our business, technically all of our clients, when you're running your own truck, they become your boss. Now, business owners, a little bit different. A business owner is somebody that may start out as in a startup mode. And what they're doing is they're taking money and the work that they're putting into it to leverage it and create a team that could eventually run those systems for them.
The way you know you're a business owner is if you could step out of the business for 3 to 6 months and it runs without you, you're a business owner. I mean, that's been our gauge for a long time that, the difference between a self-employed person, if you go away for a week, you either have to shut down or your phone blows up the whole time. So then you got the business owner quadrant, self-employed, employee. Now talk real quick about the investor. And then I know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how to get from self-employed to business owner. And that's the scale.
Anybody can be an investor, whether you're an employee, whether you're self-employed or a business owner.
Those are people that buy businesses and they don't go work in them. They invest.
Right, kind of like the guys on Shark Tank. That's what a true investor does.
So the Shark Tank guys aren't buying, like saying, all right, we're going to give you guys $500,000. And they don't go and show up on Monday and work in that business. They basically give them the money. They might point some of their resources or people to help them, keep an eye on it. But at the end of the day, an investor is not going to go and be boots on the ground. So let's dig in. Let's dig into the switch that happened. You were a teacher, and we're not going to do our story or anything like that now, but you were a teacher. You saw the opportunity to become a business owner, is what you thought you were going to become, but you basically went into the self-employed quadrant, and you started installing gutter, selling gutter. You were the marketing. You were everything. You were the system, and you're doing everything. You recruited me while you were in there. And I remember very specifically, early on, I remember that we got a call from a local gutter guy. He was ready to get out of the business. He lived a good life while he was doing the business. But then when it came time for him to want to move on, his business wasn't worth anything other than the materials and the equipment. So that's why we think it's really important to scale, because there becomes a point. So you've got two different things here. I got a buddy, Russ, who's an excavator, and he's done great. He knows how to make money. He's flipped houses. He just built himself a beautiful home, and he's kind of really always liked to keep it small and control everything. And he's done very well there. And I remember him calling me. We've talked for years, and back in the day, I told him what we're doing, and he's like, nope, that's not for me. And then I remember he called me up, and he said, Ryan, convince me why I should scale. And I said, I can't convince you. I can't say that what you're doing is the wrong thing. You have the opportunity. He's young. He has the opportunity to make a lot of money in this window, and that in the self-employed quadrant got him investor type money, where he could then flip houses and invest in things. So scaling is not always for everybody, but what happens is, I think he got to the point where it's like, all right, how cool would it be if people were doing the excavation for me and I could kind of go flip some houses or whatever else he was interested in. I think he was starting to see that he has to either not do that excavation business, which he built up for years, and then kind of do something else. And I think where we start thinking is like, all right, well, if I could get the gutter business or my excavation business to the point that it could run without me, then I could maybe start concentrating on some other things and not lose all that hard work that we do in our youth. Like, when you started your business, how old were you?
I was 24 when I started.
Yeah.
And what you're saying too happened to our father. Our dad was, he was a general contractor from like the late 1970s all the way up until the probably 1989, 90. And he took a bad fall. He broke his back. He was out of work for probably a year and a half or so. And, they were just scrimping by and having a hard time paying the bills. And I remember that because I was a little kid. So when you are the system, there's a lot more risk.
So let's talk about a little bit, like, we have a diagram, and I'm sure it'll be on the screen while we're doing this. But basically, you've got the employee quadrant, and going to self-employed is pretty easy. Whether you might even have like a skill in photography. And if you just said, I don't want to work for anyone, I want to just go take photos. Anybody can quit their job and start doing that and get into that quadrant. And then you can be successful in that quadrant. But what we have found is going from the self-employed all the way to the business owner, it's not a quick, easy move. It is a drastic, ridiculously hard move to go from there to there. And I remember for us, we were seeing our parents' friends age out of their businesses, their self-employed businesses, and nobody was selling their businesses and getting money. They were all getting jobs. At the end of a successful self-employed career, we found that they were getting jobs. And I know you and I said, we want to do something different. We want to have a business that can run without us. And the Cashflow Quadrant helped us. So when I know the biggest thing people say is you got to work on your business, not in your business. How did we work on our business to get to the business owner quadrant? Do you remember what we started on first?
It started with creating opportunity. And that's what you're doing when you're scaling a business. You're creating opportunity, not just for yourself, but for others. And that's true capitalism at work, because when you do that, it's not just about me anymore. It's about impacting other people's lives and making a difference for them, because you're creating job descriptions, you're creating systems so that other people can run those things. And you're making jobs. You're making jobs, and you're hiring talent to come in there and help run a more efficient, proficient machine that can bring the products and services to a higher level of professionalism than I can doing it by myself.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because
So you're saying that you started building a team. That's what you're saying. The first thing that you did to scale was you started to build a team that was bigger than you, and basically any helper you could find to help you hang a gutter, right?
Yeah, and I did that for years. And, the problem with that is it leads to burnout, because what happens is you always get a good guy, but then that good guy, because he hits a ceiling, because you only can pay, and you only can, if you're not growing, you're creating a ceiling for the people that you have on your team. And that's what happens to people in self-employed quadrant, is that they try to scale a business and they say, well, I tried to do that and I had a good guy, but then he left and he started his own thing. And the reason why that people do that is because our vision isn't big enough to hold them, to keep them there. And it's very easy, like you said earlier. Somebody has a camera, can start a photography business very easily. Just like our business, somebody can buy a gutter machine used and put it on a trailer, and yeah, they can start doing gutters, and they start with their friends and family, and then eventually word of mouth starts to pick up, and now you have another person that's a competitor against you. And that's what happens. That's the problem with staying in that quadrant, is that you're creating competition for you, because you're not creating opportunity for them.
So you started investing in people. I came on board, and I know we started to grow this thing. But the quote in Robert Kiyosaki's book, it says, "Always remember that B quadrant businesses get more money from investors because investors invest in good systems and the people who can build those systems." And then this is the big one to underline or write down. Investors do not like to invest in businesses where the system goes home at night. And that's where we were for a long time. If anything happened to me or Ken in the beginning, and then eventually me and Ken, the business was worth nothing, because we had everything in our heads, or we were actually doing the work or the sales. So the whole getting to be a business owner, what you have to do is you have to create enough depth between you and the last position you were in. So when you're an owner operator and you've got one guy and that's great. And sometimes we're able to get to like another crew. But what happens is, if one of those guys leaves, the owner is right back running that second truck. So you have to create a little bit more depth, right? So, okay, man, I'm one person quitting away from having to install gutter again. So then you have to build a little bit bigger. Then you're thinking, all right, now I've got those crews and I'm only selling. I need a salesperson. So then you get the one salesperson, you think you've made it. And I remember this didn't actually occur to me till in the last year, that one of the biggest reasons to grow is for this. Because now you got that salesperson, and if they're not good or they quit or move on, now you're back into that role. So you're like, oh my gosh, I need 2 salespeople. I need 3 crews or 4 crews. And before you know it, you've got your back office admin. You've got maybe 2 admin at some point. You've got a bunch of installers. You've got a sales team. And there becomes a point where you finally are insulated enough and you've built enough depth in your team that you can have a salesperson, move on or quit, and you don't have to go back into that role. You have installers, that same scenario. And then that's where I believe you get into that quadrant. The true business owner quadrant is when you can step out of the business for 3 to 6 months and it runs without you. And Ken, you experienced it firsthand. You want to talk about that? How you had to step out?
There was a couple times I had to step away from the business. One of the first times that I had to step away was when my wife and my kids got in a really serious car accident. And I was out of work for 7 weeks. My wife was in bad shape. And I had to take care of 4 kids and also go to the hospital and see her and juggle all of that. If I was still in the same position that I was when I started the business, I would have been in big trouble. I wouldn't be able to be there for my family. I would have had to go out there and I would have had to maybe, and I probably would have had help, because I know, family members and friends would have been able to help me to a certain extent, but it would have been a very, even more stressful. if I hadn't have scaled my business. But the second time that it happened to me, and life happens to all of us, right?
Yeah, sure does.
And you can never prepare for the worst because it all happens at, the craziest times. It's unforeseen. But when you scale a business, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so glad that I did. My son got sick with Powassan virus in 2017, and he was just turned 7 at that point. And he had encephalitis of the brain as a result of that, and he almost died. He made his way through that, but I literally was living at the hospital for 2 months.
Yep.
Then there was rehab after that. So I was not even coherent about business or anything. And the only reason why I was able to be there for my family, for my son, and for the rest of my children was because I had scaled my business, and we put systems together, and we worked tirelessly to do that in prior years. And I was able to step back and rely on that team to still be profitable and do what their roles and their job descriptions, and do the things that they needed to do to make the business still be successful and still have money and a paycheck coming in for me, even though I was just not emotionally or physically able to be there. And I was out of that business for like at least 4 or 5 months. I believe it happened on September 18th is when he got sick. And I didn't come back into the business till probably January of the following year.
Wow. Yeah. And I remember it. I mean, I'm his brother, so it was a big effect on the entire family, and the meal trains and everything that was going out to you guys. And, and we had good people here. It wasn't a burden. It wasn't like, Ken needs to get back right away. Things are falling apart. It was definitely, Ken was missed, and, it would be nice to have him around, but the business went on. I would love to go back and look at the books and see if there was anything noticeable. I don't really think there was, but it's really cool. And I think that's why we're sitting here saying, you know what, I really do think you should scale your business. And most people can, and in a few scenarios, I don't think you should scale your business. If you're not good with people and good with customers, and you're not trying to develop yourself as a leader to get better, then you probably should just make as much as you can in the short period of time while you can still do what you're doing, so that you can play in the investor quadrant. I don't think scaling is for everybody. Not everybody can do it because it takes a ton of work. And I think too many people don't realize the work it takes. They want, oh man, I want what you and, one of the things I hate that gets said to me often, we might go see a movie or go skiing during the week, and you have someone go, oh, must be nice. And you know what? It is nice. And we worked our tail off so that we could go away for a week or two and not have our phone ring. So it is nice. But a lot of people want to skip from where they're at, wearing all the hats, to the must be nice thing. And there's so much work, not only with your hands and your time, but you've got to, these books, as much as they kind of, we put them back there so we look smart. No, I'm just kidding. We've read them. We've read most of these books, and besides reading them, we've implemented it. So over years and years of implementing and trying and doing, you get to the business owner quadrant. So anything to add there?
What I hear you saying too, really, is that it's a mindset, and you have to be willing to change and adapt your thinking. Really is what it is. And that's really what I think the book did for me, is it really helped me to define what it is that I was thinking about, and really clarifying it. What I was thinking about was I really in my heart didn't want to be employed. Not that there's anything wrong with being employed. In my heart, I really didn't see myself being self-employed, but I really saw myself being that the business owner that Robert Kiyosaki was defining for me. And that was my place of, that's exactly what's going to make me happy. That's what I envisioned. that he was able to clarify that for me. And that's it. I really think it's about clarifying and coming to the point of, in your thoughts, of what makes you happy. And what do you see yourself? What does happy look like, not just right now for you, because self-employed or being employed right now might be happy. But we have a lot of people that are going through careers as employees. And then when they get to the end of that career and they're 40-something years old because they work for, as a police officer, or they were in the military, or they had a career that spanned as a teacher for 20, 25 years. And they're like, what's next? So we have a lot of people that are in that quadrant that are saying, hey, I always thought about business, and they call them career in transition.
Yeah.
Those people. So they've had, and were good stewards with what they did in that quadrant, and put money aside and have a retirement plan, maybe even have a pension plan where they can leverage it and buy a business. And that's important when you're looking at a business. There's so much information out there of, what would be a good investment for me. And there's all kinds of research and things that you can do to get into the right business or that would fit you. Same with people who are self-employed. Like Ryan said, if you're not being a good steward of your finances while you're young and you're able to really work your tail off and do that and put aside that nest egg, I see most of those people retreating back when they age out or whenever they get burnt out, back into a job. We saw our father do it. He went to become, he got his civil service certification and went to be a facilities maintenance manager of school systems.
Yeah.
And he got a pension from that eventually. So we see a lot of people doing that. But the bottom line is if you're in a place where, man, I'd really like to accomplish and do that, there are people out there that can help you along the way. And that's the part that is important, is that you got to find out and define what makes you happy and what you think in the future is going to also continue that happiness, whether it's being in a business or not. But it really takes changing your thinking and looking down the road long term. And I just feel that in our country, a lot of people just live in the here and the now and instant gratification. And we really can't, because we're really doing ourselves a disservice and really could put ourselves in a position in the future where might not be as happy as we are now.
Well said. So I think basically what everyone's trying to do, no matter what quadrant you're in, you're trying to take care of your retirement. You're thinking about the future. So when you're thinking about getting a good job, you're thinking about 401ks, you're thinking about, am I going to be okay later? When you're self-employed, this is your retirement plan, is scaling your business. Because what's so cool about a business, most of us are trying to, like, after all expenses are paid, I don't care if you do $200,000 a year, $10 million a year. After all expenses, salaries, and everything are paid, we're hoping to have at least 10% left over. And if you can do that in your business and you're not there, that's probably one of the best investments that you can do. And then you can only continue to do that. So we really love the idea of scaling. And for a couple more reasons, and then we're going to end, you can actually sell it. When you're not, there's a great book out there called Built to Sell. And it basically gives you a bullet point checklist of all the items that need to be in place in your business to sell it for the most money. And I think one of them is, if you're the owner, you shouldn't be selling more than 25% of the total revenue for the company. So if you're going to go sell your business, they want to see that the sales are not dependent on you, and down the line. So the more your business works without you, and that's where you create all these systems. I'll recommend the E-Myth right now. You want to grow your business, you have to systematize everything. And then you're able to continue to step back and back and back, and then you're able to step away from your business. So you can get a really good price for it in that scenario. Some people don't want to sell. Some people want to give it to their kids.
I think a lot of people, though, are intimidated by scaling because of the time frame and the money that's involved in getting to it. I think if money is not an issue, time frame that all can be cut short too. scaling up doesn't have to take, a decade like it took me. I had a lot of changing that I needed to do. I sucked at sales. I sucked at business. I just knew how to work hard. That was the best quality I had going into this, working for me. But I also knew that I needed to learn and change my thinking, and I did that along the way. It took a little while, but it doesn't have to take people that long. Banks are very willing to work with you, especially right now with interest rates being low, and invest in getting a capital infusion into your business. That's what investors are doing. That's what they're doing on Shark Tank, is they're helping these people to do that. So there are people that are out there that are like that are helping people to shortcut it, that are being able to show you the way of how, if that's what you desire, is to have a business that can eventually work for you and you not have to work for it, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
People out there that have already figured out how to create those shortcuts so that you don't keep on having these horrible things. There's a guy online that broke his ankle in our industry, and I think, Ryan, you were telling me this story. He broke his ankle, and why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, no, just a owner operator in the gutter business, broke his ankle, and he's kind of reaching out for help. Like, what do I do? I don't want to muddy my name. I guess his guys, they're not quite where they need to be to go out without him. And he's like kind of tempted to pause his business until he's better. So he's kind of in a really rough spot. And I felt so bad for him, because that's exactly, why we believe you should scale. And I'm going to talk to him, and we're going to help him out and see what we can do there. And hopefully he can get through that. But back to the scaling thing, like, I think most people, it's a misconception. I remember talking to, one of they're a competitor, but a peer, and we're friends. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, Ryan, I don't want to, I could grow my business, but I don't want to be as big as you, because I want to be able to concentrate on things outside work. And I'm like, really? I was like, so what do you think it is that my life is like? And it was so funny for him. He just thought, because we've got a fleet of trucks and we franchised our business, that I have no time. And as we kind of pulled back the onion a bit, I got way more time than him, and he's thinking that if he's going to scale, then he won't have time to do the things that he likes. I remember one time, we're talking about like payroll or something. I'm like, yeah, I think payroll's like 30 grand a week or something like that. And the guy's like, oh my gosh, I never want to be that big. Meanwhile, it's the same exact thing. Whether you're trying to make a $3,000 a week payroll or $30,000 a week, we had a harder time trying to make the $3,000 a week payroll. So as we scaled, everything got easier. It's crazy, and it's not without its headaches, but it's amazing how much your life improves, your business improves, the environment for your employees improve. Everything improves with scale. And I guess if we could kind of summarize, if you're in a trades business, or even I had a buddy, he was a physical therapist. You basically have to take off your tool belt to grow your business. And he had to stop physically working on his clients in order to grow his physical therapy practice, and now has multiple locations. So it's the same, I think, in most businesses. As much as we love what we do and we get into it because we love gutters or we love photography or physical therapy, there becomes a point where we have to, if we were going to scale, we have to take that off for a time, or like Ken said earlier, or we have to have the money to hire a general manager to grow it. If we love doing it, I have a buddy who loves to run the crane, for his tree company. Nothing would make him happier probably than to just run the crane. But I think in that scenario, we still think you should scale, but you're probably hiring different people, right, Ken? You have to hire the general manager or the CFO or all that stuff.
All these positions are hireable, all of them. And the bottom line is that when you start scaling a business, nobody's going a person who's chosen and is happy and is a passionate professional, let's say for sales. I am never, just because I have more knowledge than him of the gutter industry, which I probably do, and I do have knowledge of sales because I've gained it over the last 20 years of selling this stuff. But I, as the owner, am being pulled in different directions. And my role is not to be the sales guy if I'm scaling my business, because a sales guy is always going to have, I like to look at things like an analogy of a laser beam, right? If I'm a laser beam and I'm the laser beam, and I have all these different distractions where I have to put my laser over into marketing, into back office admin, into installations, into sales. It's watered down. And who suffers from that? I suffer from it because it's very stressful, and my time is not my own because I'm working my tail off just to keep up to make ends meet. I can't enjoy time with the family. The wife is always asking me, where the heck, when are you going to be home? You're missing kid stuff, whatever. You're not sharing the insomnia, they say, with people. And that's what the mindset that we have to break out of. We have to break out of the mindset that there's nobody that is good as me at all these different things when there is. I've lived it. I know it. I know what it's like to be in the self-employed, and I know what it's like to be on the other side and have the freedom and the time that I have now. And it's really about how you go about business. There's a thing that we call being replaceable to be promotable. You got to do that. And I think that's always been a mindset of mine when it comes to growth, is that I never really loved any of the positions that I was ever in the business, except for the position that I'm in now.
I don't know, Ken. I think you loved it, and then you get bored, and then when you move on, you love it, and then get bored.
True.
Not bored, but you're like, all right, I conquered that.
Yeah, if you have a conqueror mentality,
yeah, you like to conquer it and then move on.
Then scaling up is for you, for sure. Because there's always more to scale up to too. Because when you look at it as creating opportunities for people, and you hire the talent that's passionate about the specific thing you're hiring for, you're going to have great results. It's always going to pay you back in dividends, and it's truly a win-win, because I'm able to pay that person that's passionate about it a fair living wage that they're happy with to attain their personal goals in their life. I'm stimulating the economy. I'm also reaping benefits from that as well. But, I don't have anybody pointing at me saying, oh, that guy's bringing home wheelbarrow loads of money, because they're happy too. And I've created a system. I've created a business that is bringing products and services out to the community by people who are passionate about what they do. I'm not passionate about making spreadsheets and filling out QuickBooks reports and doing that stuff. I am not good at that at all. That's not my wheelhouse, but I can hire that done because there's people out there that lights them up at the end of the day. They love it. They live for it. There's people who live for customer service and picking up phones and scheduling and talking to people and diffusing situations. And there's people that, are good at organizational skills and good at organizing trucks and warehouses and ordering material, and they just love it. They get in there and they weld stuff and make it more efficient and better. And that's what's enjoyable about scaling a business, is by watching these people that have all these different talents, bringing them together and creating this team and machine that operate your system that you've put together. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be very enjoyable. But partnering up with somebody who already has gone the way, that can show you the way, is super important. So, having somebody that already has the mentality that you dream of having, like, Robert Kiyosaki, that guy's worth millions and millions of dollars. I can read this book in a very short amount of time. And the more things that I can implement from a guy like that, or from many other authors like the one that you have in your screen back there, Scaling Up, by Vern Tarnish, that's an awesome book where I can take those principles and learn them and implement them into my business. Watching podcasts and, all these things that we have at our fingertips, we don't have to try and reinvent the wheel. It's already been done. People have done it over and over again since the beginning of time, that have businesses that run, and multiple businesses at a time. And they have a great lifestyle. You don't have to be enslaved to it.
That's great. All right. So as you can see, there's many ways to scale your business. There's a lot that goes into it, but you got to have the hunger. It's not easy, but like we said, the resources are there. We got books, you've got coaches, you've got other ways to buy businesses that are pre-existing or franchises. There's so many ways that you can accomplish your dreams. It's just a matter of, are you willing to get out of that comfort zone? Are you willing to do what it takes to get to the other side? Thanks for joining us, and we hope you implement at least 1 or 2 nuggets from this episode that will give you the confidence to grow. Subscribe to our podcast to stay updated and grow with the bros.